Well, good evening. Great to be back again. We are on the second half of season 4, episode 5 of The Chosen. I'm going to start it at a marker about 32:06. It's right when Judas is asking Jesus questions as they're walking down the road. Now, you may remember that there was a lot going on here. Jesus is talking, has gone through some really dramatic events. Rama was killed, and in the aftermath of her death, there was this altercation that went on because um, uh, uh, James James and John came to Jesus and said, "We want to sit on your left hand and your right hand." And Jesus got out in the road and said, "You know, this is not. I can't give you this. It's not mine to give you." And he said, "Can you drink the cup I drink and suffer what I suffer?" And they say, "Yes, we can." And he stopped and went, "Oh gosh, yes, you can, but not now. You can't do that now, and it's not for you. So you're going to have to." And I think they portrayed a really good frustration in his demeanor with them asking the questions that they asked, like, "Let's sit at your right hand, your left," because their mind was completely on uh, temporal things. They were completely talking about the earth, like Jesus is going to have an earthly kingdom like David had, and they want to be on his left and his right on his throne, being his royal advisors. They were jealous. Remember all that bickering going on after Peter got the name? They were jealous of Peter. That is also in the scripture. They got angry at James and John when they asked this question. They murmured was some of the translations. I like that word. So they were murmuring about it. And this led Jesus in 4, the end of 4, to that moment where he was walking along the road in this torment. You remember that? And he stopped and he was watching Mary and Zebedee do the grapes and squishing the grapes, and the wine was coming out, looked like blood, and he was just so tense. And in that moment,
Olive oil.
oh, that's right, olive oil. In that moment is when who was it that came up? I just blanked.
Gaius.
Yes, when Gaius came up, and when he turned to Gaius and Gaius looked at him, the role was reversed. Jesus was in distress, and Gaius looked at him as this wise person who gave him this look of, "I understand." And then they embraced, and he held Jesus's head instead of the other way around. So I recall that to you in 4, because more and more we're going to see Jesus getting much more emotional than he did in the early parts. In the early parts, nothing seemed to ruffle him. Something would happen, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay." But now it's becoming real. He's going to Jerusalem. These things, it's heating up. It's heating up. Rama's died. It's heating up. Other things are going on. So, and as we know, all of the forces are arrayed against him. The Sanhedrin have put out a hit on him, and the rabbi in Capernaum, where he is trying to get him, and so it's all turning pretty bad. So also remember, I haven't watched this whole second half, so I'm going to be with you on this one as we go. That remember that Jesus learned like we learn. That's easy to forget. We forget that a lot. But just kind of keep that one thing in your mind as we watch this and go forward, because it's going to make a difference. All right, so if you've joined us and you are online, we're going to pause right here and watch this section. You can go and watch either the whole episode or just the second half, and then come on back and we'll see you here. All right. All right, we are back together again. So anybody want to start us off? What stood out?
Oh, man.
So much, but I think it's obvious that Judas has always been about the money.
Yeah.
We see the beginning. We heard about the beginning of it. We see more of it now, and we know what's to come later.
We'll see what this is not an image you would get in the scripture, because there's not enough meat between the sinews, so to speak. We've got the story, and a story and a story and a story, an event, an event. But the beauty of events like the movies like this or programs like this is that it puts a human in there, doesn't it? We get to see a plausible explanation for the events going the way they do. And it occurred to me, Alan, like you, he's good way to play it. He's always been about the money. I mean, that's been since we saw him 2 seasons back, right? With that guy who was teaching him how to be dishonest. That's basically an indoctrination that takes place when you're young in a certain way, and then you follow what you know, and depending on who you wind up with, what you know becomes what you do. It becomes your life, and then by that same influence can become dishonest or honest. So the tragedy is that if you, in that discussion that Judas was having with his former mentor, the criminal guy, he came to him confused. He came to him anxious. He said angry, trying to figure out who this was, or he knows who it is, what is going on. And with every reflection that Judas had on, who or why this is going on, how can this unfold? The answer from the guy he was talking to was always about Judas taking stuff, Judas protecting himself, Judas getting in there quick, Judas securing his future, Judas doing this, Judas doing that. He didn't answer anything about that Judas was asking, because that guy's life is all about himself. He's also, he cannot imagine somebody who is living a life for someone else. And so his counsel, his wisdom, which is not wisdom at all, is to, recreate that narcissistic perspective of me, and everybody else. And he started that with Judas when he was a protege, and now Judas is back and he's giving it to him full force. So, when I watched that, my mind wandered to, how many people have I met that I knew were, unfriendly or nasty or whatever, not fun to be with, but they really are in many ways a product of a lifetime of their trajectory has just continued to take them in a way that's defined them. And without something to break that trajectory up, to ricochet it, move it somehow, that's what they'll always be. And that's what Jesus is meant to do. That's what he's meant to be at the time that he came then and right now for us. The interjection of Christ in our life, the recognition of the Holy Spirit is to break our trajectory, no matter what it is, whether it's good or bad, or maybe it's just indifferent. It's to break that up and redirect our focus and our attention on something other than whatever it is, even if it just makes us ask the question, why am I so concerned with X? And Jesus is always about introspection. Every question they ask him, he asks them a question back. He's making them look inside of themselves and find out what was the real reason they ask. And the argument that he had when Rama died, when he turned around and called them hypocrites, and that's a long section of Matthew. He calls them hypocrites, liars, and thieves over and over again. And one of the reasons why is because he asks them a question for them to reflect on and really think inside so that they can know themselves. That's what he wants them to do. He wants them to know who they are. And they don't do it. They just answer. They just they rattle off a pat answer, and they throw their weight behind the answer like it's everything in the world and there's nothing else. And Jesus is realizing that they just are absolutely refusing with every ounce of their energy to know themselves. to face their own life and to understand why they're like this. And there's no way around it. You can't do anything with a person like that. And so he says, you're a hypocrite. You're telling everybody else to look at themselves. You're telling everybody else to follow the scripture, which is to bring them closer to God. And you are not doing it. Why? And then he keeps going because there's no answer. They can't answer it. It's impossible. I have a little sympathy for Judas in that, it's turning out that he's one of those people who couldn't act any other way. Unless there was some kind of intervention, he's going to be who he's going to be. That's who he turns out to be, right?
But he's struggling.
He is. That's the sad part. If he didn't go to that guy, if he didn't go to his old mentor, if he'd gone to Jesus instead,
yeah,
it would have been different. But even that's part of it, you see? That's part of it. The part of it that he wouldn't go to Jesus is part of this whole problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that a repeat of what Peter did and Peter's wife and little James for a little while when he was so upset about Jesus not healing his limp, and on with the different characters we see. They have the Messiah right there who's got all the answers, and they're going someplace else. They're feeling kind of like, I can't bother him. He's the Messiah. He's got all the answers. I can't. Or maybe I'll be embarrassed if I tell him, like little James. I thought that was very brave of little James when he finally fessed up to Jesus. It took a lot for him to do it, but it took a lot for Jesus to get it out of him. Remember that confrontation where he just stopped him and he wouldn't let him go? If Jesus hadn't done that, would James have ever had that conversation? It takes a lot for us to finally be honest with who we are, and maybe, most honest with God. Who am I really? That's where it all starts. Honesty and self-understanding starts it all, and actually ends it all as well.
But
Okay, what
maybe,
else? Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Well, maybe there are like someone like Mary Magdalene who didn't think she was worthy
Yes.
of being better.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is and actually Jesus did the same thing. Because remember when she said, when they had that conversation, and he said to her, why, or come to me, and she was like, I'm not worthy, I can't do it. And his answer to all of it when it was all said and done was to call her by her name.
Mm.
So he basically overrode all of her I'm not worthies with, kind of, I made you. So you don't get to say you're not worthy. I do. I'm the one who said that. And I'm not saying it. So there has to be something else. There's people get stuck in places. Usually, sadly, it's not stuck in good places. It's stuck in the bad places. So we don't get stuck in joy and happiness. We get stuck in anger and depression. And not always, but so many times we do it to ourselves. And the saddest part is when you find someone who has done it for so long that that's where they live, that's who they are. And when that happens, I have found it's almost a death sentence, because since the person becomes that person, this depressed, kind of sullen person that, their only reflection of themselves is how they got cheated, or how they got hurt, or how, wounded, or how they missed the opportunity, or how whatever, that becomes so much who they are that they can't let it go. They can't, because if they are not this wounded person who was, persecuted or gypped or cheated, then who would they be? And because of that, they're in counseling. Boy, talk about a burden. They just, you realize really quickly, we're not talking about helping them see that this event that was so horrible that makes them feel so guilty, actually is dead and gone, and they're forgiven and everything's okay. You get all that all out there, and they go, yeah, I know. And then they go right, like a slingshot or rubber band right back to where they were again, because that's all they know how to be. And in the end, they won't accept the forgiveness. They won't accept the letting it go because they can't. It has to be them. They have to be defined by it. So this is the place, that great image of Mary, God saying, overriding that and saying, I'm the one who makes the decision whether you're guilty. I'm the one who makes the decision if you're not worthy. I'm the one. You have to come to me. And if you do it honestly, then I'll set you free. Because I'm the only one that can. We are the captains of our own ship, the masters of our own dominion. We are the ones that write our own course, all those great platitudes, right?
Yeah.
We refuse to accept forgiveness, refuse to accept love and care from people, and we have to go inside and stop it. And that's hard, man. That is hard. That's probably one of the greatest lessons of the incarnation. That Jesus did all this life and death and torture and everything else to teach us this, to tell us we're worthy. You're worth everything that I'm doing. You're worth all the pain that I took. You're worth all the death that went on and all the death since then. All the martyrs, everyone killed for their faith, everybody along the line was all for. And I hope everybody keeps thinking this way. Everybody should. Jesus and everyone since Jesus that died for the faith died specifically for you. Not everybody else, just you. That's each one of you. Each one of us. If we could all think that way, all of that focus on each one of us, how would it change the way we see ourselves or understand our relationship with Christ? That's huge. It's huge. What else? How about the boy, doesn't Lazarus have a spread?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was, wow. Speaking of money,
He's what, yeah.
How many rooms are in that house?
I would say a lot of money there, yeah.
He's rich.
Hmm.
He's Jesus's secret rich friend.
Yeah.
Did we know he was rich? And I mean, is that accurate?
Yes, he was very well off. That is accurate. We don't know how big his house was. Did he have lots of rooms and stuff? He probably did. I mean, most of the Hebrew construction, the architecture, one of the things that they had was a courtyard, a big courtyard with stuff in it, and a place where you could go out and sit and grow small things, and places for people to come. And certainly he was rich enough that he could have lots of people and would need space. Anybody, the king needs a palace, right? Got to have the big rooms to get all the people in there, all the important people. So he would have had, Lazarus was buried in his own tomb.
Mhm.
That's only a really rich person. Normal people don't have tombs like that. They have corporate tombs. They have tombs that they rent space in. Remember that your body, when you die, is going into the tomb only for about 7 years. After 7 years or 9 years, it depends. They're going to open the door. They're going to go and you're in a shroud. They put you in a shroud, like big linen envelope. They wrap you in linen. They sprinkle you with oils and a concoction of oils and ointments. And then they put the shroud around you from your feet around your head and back up again, like an envelope. And then in that big tomb, then they stick you in a hole. There's the tomb. It looks like my hand. Looks just like my hand. Okay, so this is the tomb. It's gonna be like that, but I'm gonna hold it this way. My wrist is the hole on the wall in the cliff that goes into the cave. Right now, if you're looking down from the ceiling. What you have in the middle of the cave right here, there's going to be like right between my hands, there's going to be a big dent, a big trough that's been put into the ground, where when you put the body down, you put it in this big trough. So when you put down the linen, then you put the body down that you've wrapped up in like a mummy into this space, and then you pour all the oils all over it. So the oils catch in the trough and it just soaks. Okay. After it's soaked in this, from where you are right here, the body's laying down right here, you take the body, and my fingers are little caves that are cut into the stone that go down at an angle like this. And you slide the body down one of those tubes, which is about 7-8 feet deep and about 2 feet around. Slide it down. And you take the end of the shroud and you roll it up, and then you break it up, seal it. So a rich person might have a tomb with 5 of these things. They're called, the name of them is a cook, with a k sound, a cook. That's where you put the body. Then in 7 years, somebody comes in who's been paid to do this, and they break down the stone, and here you grab the shroud, and that's how you pull the body back out. That's why you have that linen shroud, so you can pull the body up. And they take it and they feel all over the body, which is not a body anymore, because the oils, unlike in Egypt that they put the oils on you to preserve you, these oils are specifically designed to break you down to nothing. So they feel the body, and if the body's all gone and there's nothing but bone there, they're done. They pull the whole body out, and they take it as it is in, they roll the shroud up, they turn the bones as they go, they roll the whole shroud up, they put it in a bag, and they take it away. They unroll it, they clean all the bones up, and then they put the bones into a little box, little coffin, called an ossuary. And they take the ossuary and they rebury it, usually in a wall. They put it in a wall along with 150 more. You may remember about 10 years ago, they were breaking down tearing down a building in Jerusalem, and they broke down this wall. It was an ossuary wall. There was all these ossuaries in it. They had to stop, and people weren't buried in the ground. Only the rich people are buried in the ground. There, they have tombs. That's why when Jesus says to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, you hypocrites, liars, and thieves, you have whitewashed tombs. And those are the tombs right on the other side of the Kidron Valley from the temple. If you look right out the temple door, it goes across and goes up, and you have Mount of Olives, literally an olive grove that goes all the way across the mountain. And on this side, it's a graveyard filled with tombs, whitewashed tombs. So Jesus is using that image directly. Now, back to the body. If you feel the body after 7 years and there's stuff still in there, he may pour a little bit more oil on it, and you take a big long rod and you put it inside of the shroud and you push it back down the coke, and you brick it back up, and you come back in 2 years and it'll be done. So this is important, because that's why if Jesus had not died on the Sabbath, on the eve of the Sabbath, they stuck him in the tomb, but they didn't have time to wrap him up, pour oil in him, and stick him down the tube. That's why they went back in 3 days to get the body, because they couldn't do it over the Sabbath, because you can't work, right? So if he hadn't died then, he would have been in that tube, and nobody would have been looking for him. Nobody would have come back for 7 years. So the whole thing, I mean, the way Jesus died, when he died, all the process of it had to be as it was, or it couldn't have been. All right. So yeah, we know this about Judas Lazarus is rich because he had his own tomb, a family tomb that only he was buried in. Only rich people had that. So yeah, he's got this super spread. I think that was probably the most fantastic portrayal of the lesson between Mary and Martha that I've ever seen. I mean, so beautifully done, absolutely touching in how gentle and sincere Jesus was to Martha. I've heard preachers butcher that story and make Martha out to be this you know, shallow, busybody worker that, you know, just doesn't know what's good for her. And I've never agreed with that. I've always thought that was a terrible way to look at it. And I'm so glad they did what they did in this. Did you see those sandwiches?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
They look delicious from here.
Sprinkle, the honey.
Oh, the honey. Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Fresh fruit on top. Oh, man.
But you see, the beauty of that was that's her gift. Her gift is service. Her gift is serving people and providing for people and making things that are beautiful for people. And, you know, I wrote this down.
That bread she took out of the oven, my goodness, it was like
wasn't that great?
perfectly cooked. It was like, wow, that was a bakery ready bread. Sorry, I just had to interject.
No, she's doing everything right, everything good. I wrote down Mary's response to Jesus is dedication. Martha's response to Jesus is admiration. And of course, those are different things. She admires him. She says, "You deserve this." You know, she's not being flippant. She's really admiring who he is. Whereas Mary is just all in. She's just dedicated to this moment, no matter what. She's, you know, when Martha was up there trying to get her attention and give her the evil eye, and she had laser lock on Jesus. Another lesson, you know, that's the lesson for Judas. Think about these images juxtaposed. Judas, who's looking around everywhere. Where's my answer? Where do I go? I don't know what's happening. What's happening? And versus Mary, who's just laser locked on Jesus. So those two images are meant to be juxtaposed. You know, if Judas was laser locked on Jesus like Mary, he'd get the answer. He'd have it. But he's not doing that. He's all looking everywhere else.
But if Mary had helped Martha, then both of them could have sat down and listened to Jesus.
Yes. But then Jesus wouldn't be able to do that cool lesson.
Yeah.
Now Cindy, you just actually hit on something that is really important when we see Lazarus holding his back.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like Lazarus has cancer. You know, he's got lower back pain. He's got some kind of nerve pain. He's got like a tumor, something that's come on him, that's killing him slowly. And he's just in the end now. And Jesus looks at him and he gives this look like he knows it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then the question is, well, if he knows it and he's going to raise Lazarus from the dead anyway, why not just cure him right now? Right?
Because then they wouldn't have the miracle.
That's right. See, so this is a criticism that comes around all the time in discussions with atheists. They always ask this question, you know, Jesus, why didn't Jesus do? In fact, this is the big outcry online when they said Jesus would have healed Rama. He wouldn't have let her die. He would have healed her, right? But that's our thinking. That's what we want. And what Jesus is saying constantly to the people is that the events that are taking place, all the events that are taking place, are meant to the glory of God. You know, so this person being healed, that's to the glory of God. This person being healed, that's to the glory of God. Is it great for them? Yeah. But its ultimate purpose is to bring glory to God. That's it. So the death of Lazarus and the raising of Lazarus is to bring glory to God. And the most profound, perhaps the most profound lesson in the miracles that Jesus performed, that he brought Lazarus back to life. Lazarus, of course, had to die in order to do that. And it couldn't have been Rama. It had to be Lazarus, with all of those witnesses there, all of the people that would be there because he's a rich guy. All the news. You see, if Rama died, think about it. Rama's nobody. She's nobody. in fact, she's kind of a woman of ill repute because these women are traveling with Jesus. That was a very rare thing to do. Women didn't do that. So people are like chittering about the women. You can bet on it. So Rama, if she died, who would know? Who would care? When Lazarus died and Jesus took 2 days to get back there, right? It was in every newspaper in the country. If he was that rich and he was a merchant that sold things and did stuff, it went out like crazy because other merchants are getting ready to jump in and take his share of the market. So everybody in the country would know Lazarus died. And for 2 days, he's dead. There's no question. He is dead. Rama, she wasn't really dead. You know, he stabbed her. He stabbed her with a letter opener. That's what they'd be saying. Jesus didn't really raise her from the dead. She wasn't really dead. So this had to happen with Lazarus because it couldn't happen any other way. So Jesus can't do anything. The thing that got me is that he's grieving what he can't do. He's grieving that he can't save Lazarus. And I think that's just touching. That's God grieving for our mortality, which we shouldn't have. We should have immortality. We should have eternity to ourselves, not this, what we've got. I think that a very touching portrayal and a beautiful explanation of Mary and Martha, just beautiful. And Mary, one more thing about that. I know we're over time. Did you see Jesus when Martha was standing there? He said, "I want you to sit down," and then he went up and grabbed her wrist. And then when she sat down a few minutes later, he grabbed her wrist. Okay. Men didn't touch women. That was like a no-no. No touchy. Women hug women, men hug men. Men don't touch women unless they are wives or mothers, something like that. So this was an intimacy with her that transcended all social norms, and it was okay. Nobody gasped. Nobody was shocked. Even Martha wasn't shocked. She just stood there. She didn't look down at her hand and with her eyes really big, "Oh my gosh, you're touching me." It's okay because they know who he is. It's okay because his intention is life. It's not anything else. So I thought that was a really, really important little piece that was easy to miss along the way. Okay.
All the rabbi stuff.
All the rabbi stuff. All of that whole ball is to show you that the Sanhedrin was completely corrupt. They were all in for their own thing. They all had their own little pet project, and they were just all working in their own little group to get their little pet project done. And they were willing to do anything, kill Jesus in order to get his project moved to the top of the list. That little quiz that he gave him. So he said, "What kind of fish?" Right? What kind of sandals? And then what kind of rabbi? And the reason why he asked him is he was saying, is he going to pick the fish that the rich guy eats, the soles, the shoes that the rich guy wears, the teacher of the rich people, which is Shammai, and it's the leather sandals, or is he going to pick the rope sandals and Hillel? Because that would put him as a Sanhedrin, whether he's in the Pharisees or the Sadducees. He's a Pharisee, but he can be a Pharisee with that rich sort of longing, which wouldn't be somebody that a true Pharisee would want to be around. So that guy is giving the quiz to see, and he's making him say it out loud so everybody will hear it. So it's pretty clever, actually. He's learned that people are duplicitous and corrupt, and he's making them speak so that everybody hears, so that if later on it's a lie, he can call them on it. So he's getting a chip. He's saving up his chips, which is a corrupt thing to do. So it's a sad thing. Of course, learning this whole thing, Rabbi can't do anything. That's why they end with him just sitting there in this dazed, sort of dumbfounded, the organization that he thought was the most holy organization on earth, safeguarding God in the temple, the Holy of Holies, is as abjectly corrupt as any Roman or Greek gathering. No difference at all. It's awful. That kind of disillusionment, honesty hitting you in the face. Last little bit, Jesus being normal. Joking around, that little joke with Lazarus when he first got there, and Jesus played along. Jesus sitting there making jokes with him and with everybody, all the guys around, and now his talking to them is just very plain and honest, with him saying, "You need to sit at my feet," and that just means you need to be my disciple. You need to listen to what I'm saying. That's the most important thing. So he's being very plain. It's not there's no lofty teacher here, high up here. This is just a regular guy. He's a regular guy doing regular stuff, and laughing and grieving, and it looks like everybody else. So, and you catch that line to Mom? Human, right? So that's another part of this episode. Jesus is saying, look at me. I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm worried, I'm grieving, I'm intentional, I'm serious. I can't understand. Now think of this. Judas can't understand what's going on with Jesus. Jesus is saying, what's wrong with them? Why can't they get it? And Mom's trying to tell him. So in a way, he's not understanding. He's experiencing what's going on. He has the understanding. He's learning what it's like not to understand, which is incredible. That line, let me give you this one. But she said, sometimes your dad and I had to choose who would eat. And his line's fantastic. It was important to learn the uncertainty of poverty. That was his lesson in those times when Mom and Dad didn't have enough food. The uncertainty of poverty, which means he learned that being poor and not having enough can happen to anybody at any time. Doesn't matter who they are. Look at him. He's God. He's God in the flesh on earth, and he doesn't have enough food to eat. So that's an incredible lesson to learn, and to be able to empathize with people who are in that place, and realize that this is out of your control to a certain extent. Okay, we gotta go. It's all 1:15. Dang. All right. So much in this one. This was a lot. This is a whole lot. Lots of this episode was tied together with the humanity, and with the Martha and the Mary, and with all of what's going on in the Sanhedrin. Lots of interconnectedness in this. Can't wait for the next one. Really, we're speeding up lots of things going on, and they're doing such a great job. I'm looking so forward to it. So we're moving on to 6 next week, episode 6, and a big hoorah.
Don't forget to watch the after shows. Did you watch any of those?
Is that on their website? I went to their website. I could not find anything that said after show at all.
It's watch.thechosen.tv.
I'll have to just look. I will Google The Chosen after show and see what I get. Here, let me
Can you
stop.
copy paste it and throw it in chat, Catherine?